I'm Victoria Reasner. We're here with Dr. Andrew Jones today. Currently, we're discussing COVID. Our world is in chaos. People don't know what to do or who to believe. Experts have been letting us down. So today, Dr. Andrew Jones will be answering our questions for us, anything that we're concerned about, and just kind of give us a guide on what to expect and what to do.
Thank you, Victoria, for the introduction. As always, my podcast, this is episode 6. If some of you have been following or it's your first time tuning in, the purpose of this podcast is to give scientific-based answers to many yearning questions. Like Victoria said, experts are letting us down. People are talking, giving advice on topics they don't know about. As a physician, I don't have qualifications to speak about this, but I'm a molecular microbiologist and immunologist, and so forth. I'm stay up to date with the latest literature, so forth, do my own research all the time. So I look at all the clinical trials and I dissect them so I can bring the information to you. So feel free to look at things up to yourself. I will never steer you wrong. I try not to give my opinion or be political, but stick just to the facts so that you can answer your questions. Our topic's gonna be like the vaccine, antibodies, the testing, is it accurate, false positives, false negative? Should I get the vaccine? What do I do? What's going on? So basically, just before we start, I'm gonna let you guys know I'm exhausted. What I said in a previous podcast earlier this year about the cases going to go up in the winter times, be mad chaos, hospitals going to be full and so forth if we don't do something. It's happening. People are dying, the hospitals are packed, over full. California just went to a state of shutdown because of that. It's a madhouse, and I'm picking up extra shifts to help out, doing night, day shifts all the time. So I apologize if I look worn out, but I will we'll get you guys through this. So
Do your best.
as much as I'm exhausted, I know that people out here, they're going through it too. So we're in this together, actually. So we're gonna touch about everything and answer everyone's questions. By the end of this podcast, you should be well versed in everything. So, all right. So
my first question, there's quite a couple countries that have no cases right now. What's going on with that? How come they have 0 cases? What are we doing wrong why we can't be that same country as them?
actually, it's face mask, social distancing, and washing your hands have been proven to end a pandemic, but only in the beginning stages. These countries did that. And so you're wondering, why didn't the US do that? The reason being is, in December and January, we knew what the virus was, SARS coronavirus 2, 80% similar to the original coronavirus. We knew the genome. It was actually published by the Chinese scientists on the website. You can actually download it. That's how people start doing the vaccines. They're downloading the sequence without having the virus, and they're making these vaccines.
Okay.
You know, technology is great. And then they realized, wow, if it's a respiratory virus, it's going to have some people who are going to get really sick and die. Some people are going to show no symptoms, coughing, sneezing, transmitting. They knew all this thing. So their experts said, you know what? Let's take these precautions right now to protect ourselves. So while the US is suffering the worst economic downturn in forever, and people are dying, and actually the US has the most cases out of all the countries, as far as mortality, morbidity, everything. We'll discuss why later. There are countries out there that have no cases. You can look them up online. They see pictures of people on the beach, walking, indoor dining, just at the movies, having a drink with family, loved ones, and they're living their lives.
I've actually seen videos of other countries of people not even wearing masks out there on the streets and just doing their normal everyday functions that we were doing before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, so we're just trying to get through this and get back to that. So hopefully, sometime we'll talk about when that will take place. So.
Okay. Next question that I have is that most cases occurring at home. A little bit more education on that. How is that happening? Why are more cases happening when you're at home than other?
So you got to think about it. So when you go to the store and you're walking, you're out in public, and then you're wearing your face mask, you're social distancing and so forth and everything, which is actually, believe it or not, it's not an exact science. It's just an approximation. So you're doing all of that. You come home, you take your face mask off. You interact with your family, loved ones, you hug your son, your daughter, your mom, your dad, so forth, and touch. So 10% of the cases are found by touch.
Okay.
So everyone's always like, gotta protect my face.
But you're still touching.
You're still touching everything, and so 10% of the cases occur by touch. So a lot of times people come to the hospital with COVID, short of breath, and like, Dr. Jones, I did everything. I wore my face mask. I did everything. Like, it's the news and everyone's pounding it. Like, I was getting on that person not wearing theirs. I was wearing mine. I did everything. Yeah. Why is it that? Because we'll talk about face mask transmission. It only reduces it by like 40%. We'll talk about this later on in the podcast.
Yeah, another thing, like you saying it occurs at home and stuff, what I was curious about is like when we are going back into kind of a second lockdown, but not as crazy as it was at first. And there's still shopping malls being open and people waiting in lines and stuff, even though they're being social distanced, they're still going into the same store, touching the same things.
Yeah.
And they don't have employees going there and sanitizing every item that you touch right after you touch it.
No, this is just mass chaos because everyone's doing what they want to do. Like you said, even some states, across the U.S. as a whole, there's one of my friends called me today. I called him to ask him. He's a physician. And he said, "Hey man, let me call you back. I'm in the gym working out." And I can't even go to the gym workout. You know, I gotta go for a jog outside. So it's
most apartment buildings, their gyms have been shut down.
Yeah, it's just the pools are closed, everything's closed, you know. But other states, they're enjoying it. Actually, believe it or not, people are traveling to other states. Like for example, in Nevada, people are traveling to Nevada to go shopping, indoor dining.
Because
they're open.
Yeah.
So actually, Vegas is seeing a lot more, flow because you can't do this stuff here. People are actually want to.
With them having people travel there, are they having an increase in their cases as well?
Across the country, all the cases are going up, but believe it or not, they're going up proportionally. So,
yeah. My next question I want to ask you is about kids testing positive for coronavirus.
That is always a concern, and I've been telling parents since day one, kids have nothing to worry about. More kids, believe it or not, the pandemic's been going on since December, almost a year. Out of 1.4 million cases of kids getting it, and kids, this data is from like 21, not 5-6 year olds. Data is under 21. 100 kids have died, and most of those were with comorbidities, cerebral palsy, neurodevelopmental disorders, and we're finding out now doing genome sequencing of so-called healthy kids, they had genetic mutations in their immune system that impaired them from mounting a sufficient viral response.
Oh wow.
So out of 1.4 million kids, it was just 100.
Wow.
So actually that's a good thing, and actually even this pandemic, as long as it's been going on, has still not hit the point of killing as many kids as the flu did last year.
Yeah.
So that's just something, and we have the flu shot, and
there's still more deaths in kids.
Still more deaths with
than
the flu than
coronavirus.
yes.
So with that being said, do you think it is safer for kids to be going back to school currently right now, or should they still be doing online school as well?
So here's the kids going to school, they're safe, but the conversation among everyone has always been like, well, we know kids are not going to get the same symptoms as adults and so forth, and they're not dying. But we have to protect our educators or our administrators, your bus driver, cafeteria people, so forth, janitors. That's honestly the reason for schools not opening.
Okay, that's understandable. Next thing, risky habits, touching your face mask, not wearing it wrong, or not washing your hands properly.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that? Are people not doing the proper procedures or not being taught the right way to be doing it?
Yeah, that's the thing with the face mask. Let me see, where's my face mask? Let me see, get it real quick. Okay, found it. Okay, yeah, face mask. So, with the face mask is, as cases are going up, when we talk about coronavirus, it's more and more virus particles in the air this time of year, cold and flu season. So people put on the face mask, they put it on wrong, the little crease inside where air can flow through. They don't do this part, and they're eating and drinking. They're eating and drinking. They do this right there, and see where the hand is. Mm-hmm. You touch the coronavirus particles that.
Now you're putting it on your face.
Then your face. So you're doing this the whole day. The whole day you're doing this the whole day, and then you're sitting down at your office desk and you're just eating, drinking, and then you're just touching everything. And then you go home and you touch everything, and you got.
So you're kind of defeating the purpose of using it.
Yeah, you defeat the purpose of using it also. So
yeah. Okay. Next thing I want to touch base on is the effects that coronavirus is having on people mentally, not just getting sick and stuff, but with depression, drug abuse, or people committing suicide and things like that.
Yeah.
How is this pandemic being shut down, having to be isolated from your loved ones and from your friends and stuff? How is that mentally affecting people as well?
The one thing I've seen in the literature is that there's an increase of 30 to 40% in people with anxiety and depression. Those cases going up. And I've seen that translate in my hospitals also with people who are more depressed and so forth. Suicide is on the rise. There was one sad case of an 11-year-old up North California. He did a Zoom class and he killed himself. Very sad. It's kids are suffering tremendously.
Yeah.
And I feel sorry for kids because they're suffering because of what adults have done.
For our mistakes.
Yeah, they're suffering for no reason for what we have done. So
yeah, that's another thing I was curious about too. Kids not being able to be in school and not being able to be socialized at their prime time in their life when they should be getting the most socialization, and how that's affecting them as well and stuff too.
yeah, so it's a lot of psychological studies have shown that the earlier years of a child, their development has a lot of impact on future years. So these have long-lasting effects on kids, decades and decades later.
Yeah, completely understand.
And so while we're doing this, people are just fed up. Like, for example, government officials are out partying. You've seen, I think Newsom was, got caught at dinner.
Yeah, he got made viral for that mistake he made after wanting to put us on lockdown.
Yeah. So there's a lot of there's a lot of inconsistencies out there. So people just, well, what do I do, and so forth. So
yeah, and same thing with small businesses as well too. People that live paycheck to paycheck to keep their businesses open.
While the big businesses are still open, and the big businesses are benefiting from the bailout. Also, the small businesses don't get those checks. The big businesses do. So yeah, there's a lot of inconsistencies. So I understand why people are stressed.
Yeah.
All these factors contribute to the anxiety and depression.
And it goes to show coronavirus, even if you might not be getting the virus yourself and getting sick, it can still be impacting a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
And because we have inconsistency from our leaders and so forth, believe it or not, 11 months later, we still don't have a direction of what to do. They just say social distancing, mask, and obviously it's not working.
Yeah.
And all the studies show, like I said in the beginning, it works, but it's too late. It's like talking about like preventing forest fires when you have a wildfire brewing. We're past
it's
that.
what we should have done in the beginning. Now we need to find something new to
do something different.
Get us back on the right track.
We're past that. And so people make up their own rules. You see people walking around the street with, I'm sure you see like a cloth mask, a bandana, 2 face masks, 3 face masks, 2 cloth masks, a face shield, a hair net, gloves, shoe coverings, and I see that in the hospital. So just a simple fact that I see doctors and nurses and so forth doing that, it lets me know that they have no idea.
They're not being properly
everyone is in their own right, smart in their own decision. Like you have people on TV, neurosurgeons, cardiothoracic surgeons, CEOs, medical directors, people who are smarter in their fields than I am, giving advice on a topic they don't know anything about, which is sad because it's really sad because people listen to people, oh, you're smart, you're the top, medical director for the CDC, you definitely know what you're talking about, but actually no,
At the same time, what's going on, it's new for everybody, even you guys as well too, so you guys are kind of learning it with us in a way.
Yeah, and also as I said before in my podcast the case is not accurate. For example, a patient will come to the hospital, they tested COVID positive at urgent care. They come to the hospital and test positive in the hospital. Then, for some reason, they want to test them again in a few days to see if they tested positive. But COVID test for the RNA of the virus, not for the actual active virions. So you can test positive for 2 months, more than that later on. So a person with 3 positive COVID tests counts as 3 new cases, not 1. Believe it or not.
Oh wow.
So when they say, oh, we have 100,000 new cases today,
it could be one person testing 3 times.
Yeah, exaggerated. And there's no system, and even with the mask, there's no in the testing. So with the testing, you need to do 25. Right now, we're barely doing 25 million tests per month. We're at 24 million. We need to do 250 million tests per month. That's how broad the virus is. We're not doing that.
We're not doing as much.
So there's no national stature in place for this country to have standardized tests. There's no standard test across the board. Everyone does different tests.
Another thing, what about hospitals at their full capacity not having enough can't think of the word for it right
The PPE, the personal protective equipment. Hospitals, we have enough PPE. We are running out, but we do get enough. So we do our best with that. The one thing I will say is there was a memo from one of the hospitals I work at. It said we need our healthcare providers to be honest in the questionnaire. You go to the hospital, they check your temperature if you work there. They ask you, do you have any COVID symptoms? Which is no such thing as COVID symptoms. Most of the respiratory viruses exhibit the same symptoms. So you can't elicit, oh, you have COVID, you have adenovirus, you have rhinovirus. It's impossible to tell. And then, but people are lying, nope, I have no fever, I have no cough, I have no shortness of breath. And then around the whole hospital, you see the staff sneezing and coughing, rubbing their nose. And all the questions, no. They're obviously lying.
They're saying no because they want to go to work.
Of course, So the hospitals are sending out memos, trying to catch people.
Okay.
So.
And then, what about, talking expels 750,000 viruses a minute?
So basically so people talk about like the face mask.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of misconception about the face mask. So there's actually studies that I read that come out to show that actual talking expels 300 viruses per minute.
Oh, wow.
300 particles, and each particle, so doing the math, long story short, like you said, 1 minute of talking expels 750,000 virus particles. And if we extrapolate from the SARS virus that was earlier in 2003, you need around 300 virus particles to become infected. 300. So you have 750,000 virus particles emitted per minute just talking, and you need 300. You can see how your mask is not gonna block all that. So now you see why everyone's focused on the mask, and it's too late at this point. There's too many virus particles everywhere. The mask is
just a small precaution, but it's not the bigger image.
Exactly. It's like you still want to prevent forest fires when the fire is going on, but it's what's the efficacy at that point?
Yeah.
You definitely still want to wear your mask, but
it's not the most important thing that's going to protect you.
Not right. Most important thing is I always harp in my podcast is your immune system, and so forth.
So staying healthy, taking care of your body and stuff like
so
that.
forth.
Eating properly to make sure you keep your immune system healthy as
Yeah.
well. Do you have any advice on what people can be doing at home to be taking care of themselves?
Yeah, exactly. So like most cases occur at home. Like most households, so you always get like this whole family got sick of COVID. This whole family. I'm seeing in the hospital now, moms at this hospital, dads at this hospital, brother, sister. So the way is what I have right here in where we're filming. I have an air ionizer that actually emits and it kills bacteria, viruses, COVID-19, so forth, with all the surfaces in the air while we're talking. And I have an air purifier also. So those two things by themselves greatly help a lot.
Working together.
Yeah, working together synergistically, like nonstop.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that since earlier this year.
So those are the two top things that you recommend everybody should have in their household, especially.
They're sold out. If you can get one,
Okay. So if you get lucky to find one, go look for one.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about traveling during COVID, or if you've had COVID and you want to go out and travel? What's your opinion on that? What should people be doing?
Okay. So my opinion is, like I said, based on facts. So the CDC says whether or not you had COVID, don't travel.
Okay.
And the reason for that is they'll say we know that immunity lasts maybe 3 months, but we're not sure, so forth. And my whole thing is, you're not sure, but why don't you ask immunologists at one of the top colleges in the country? Mm-hmm. Why don't you ask the top virologists? Don't give me what you think from hearing this and so forth. Actually do the research like I do, So sticking to the facts, traveling during COVID is not recommended, point blank. If you have to travel and you've had COVID, you have nothing to worry about, which I'm going to explain later on with antibiotics and so forth. You have nothing to worry about. But the CDC says no. They say no, whether you had it or not, we know how long antibodies last, so forth. But that's based on opinion. When I read the article, when I read articles, I look for facts. I go past opinions and I try and find facts, because as scientists you have to focus on the facts, because that's what's true.
Not just what people are thinking,
but
what they're hearing from others. And
it's sad. I mean, you're getting a lot of opinions from the CDC, a lot of opinions from top experts. You're getting opinions, so.
Totally understandable. And then, or I'll let you if you want.
So I did want to add about the face mask also. There was a surprising article. I knew this like months ago, but I didn't say anything because I was going to get blasted by my colleagues and everyone for saying this. But I've read recent other like virologists and epidemiologists and infectious disease doctors. They've done their own research and they validated what I didn't say, because I didn't want people to say, "Oh, you're wrong." People were initially thinking, if I wear my face mask, I'm protected from everyone else. Mm-hmm. That has been like the slogan: protect yourself and protect others. If you don't wear your face mask, it means you don't care about everyone else. that person's wearing their face mask, so I'm protected now. I'm wearing my own protected.
Yeah.
And if I wear my face mask, if I get exposed to COVID, it doesn't matter because the amount of viruses that I'm exposed to is so low, I'm going to get a mild illness, and it's going to stimulate my immune system so that when I do get exposed to a larger amount later, I'm fine. That is not true.
Okay.
It sounds rational, but science is not always rational. So these studies that have come out, I'm glad I read it recently, have shown that there's no dose-dependent evidence to show that. So they found that no matter how many virus particles you're exposed to, the thing that contributes to you getting sick is your comorbidities. For example, if you take a household, like I told you, this is a household. Mom, dad, brother, sister, daughter, son, kids, they're all sick. They all catch COVID. So they've been exposed to the same number of virus particles. Why is it that mom ends up in the hospital, dad may end up in a hospital and he may pass away, brother gets it, he's okay, and the little kid, 4-year-old running around, he has a fever one day and he's over it.
Yeah.
So they're getting the same number of virus particles, coughing, talking, and so forth. But yet, so that right there refutes the premise that the mask reduces the amount of exposure and it helps you get a less severe disease. That's not true. People initially thought, because like I said, it sounds rational, like, well, the mask protects me.
It sounds good to the people.
It sounds good, but that is not true at all. And after reading the data and so forth, I can come out and say that it's.
What about, sorry to cut you off, what about sanitizing and stuff? I've actually heard a story of a wife, her husband was a nurse who got coronavirus, came home and they didn't know at first, he wasn't quarantining or anything, and they touched the same thing. And either the wife or the kids ended up getting corona. And when I spoke to her, she said that their biggest thing is that they were really huge on keeping their house clean and sanitized. Yeah,
you can sanitize, but with sanitizing and washing your hands, you're gonna make a mistake. A lot of people don't wash their hands long enough. You know, they go use the bathroom, they put the soap on, do this, they rinse paper towels, and And the recommendation is 20 seconds. Nobody washes their hands in 20 seconds. Nobody,
nobody's spending a lot of time doing it every day.
Unless you're scrubbing it into surgery, you're not washing it. I mean, doctors don't even do that. I mean, I'll be honest, when I scrubbed in for surgeries as an assistant, yes, I'm 2 minutes.
But not every single time. Obviously, it's not a practical.
No. It's not practical. So.
All right. So the next thing I want to discuss is testing or improvement on testing. What's going on with that?
So testing,
at first we weren't getting enough. And now all of a sudden testing is everywhere.
So testing in the beginning was a madhouse. Every mom pop store was trying to design a test to make money. I remember in the beginning I had a friend who was a dentist. He's like, yeah man, you want to get in with me? We found this company overseas that can give us 250,000 tests. For this much money, we're gonna sell.
To add to that, my family, they own a dental office and they actually were offering testing for the antibodies and corona there as well, which I was kind of surprised about.
Yeah, but the problem with that is if this person has a test, this person has a test, this person has a test, there's no standard test. And the sad part, 11 months later, we still don't have a standard test. Going back to the people in charge of us, so testing has improved. Now they're getting better. It's still not, back then it was 15% efficacy. Now it's up to 50, 60, and even a lot higher now. Some of them are 90. The ones that you got to send them out, take days, a couple days to come back. Just case in point, there was a nursing home that had 3,700 positive cases. Just an example, nursing home.
Yeah.
I don't remember which state. 3,700 positive cases, and the health official in that state says something's not right here. So they took some of those positives and they ran it with the RT-PCR, and most of those came back negative.
Okay.
So they said, wait, so it looks like based on your testing, we're getting a lot of false positives, and 60% of your cases in the nursing home where it says they were positive were not positive.
Yeah.
They were negative. So that was creating undue stress to the patient and family. So, my family's COVID.
Having to quarantine them, and especially being elder in a nursing home and stuff, that's really concerning.
Yeah, and then the antibody tests. The antibody tests, There's a lot of problems with the antibody test. I know when people see on the news like, oh, the antibody test, I don't have the antibodies, so I'm not immune to COVID, or I tested positive for antibodies, 2 or 3 months later I'm negative. COVID is so powerful, like my immune system can't match it and so forth. So let me explain what that means in details, because what you're hearing on the news is true, but what happens is when you hear the truth is you need to hear the whole truth. So these tests are not that sensitive. I'm gonna show you a picture. Look at this picture right here. You see how a normal response is the antibodies go up, you fight off the infection goes away, then the antibodies come down. That's a normal response for any infection. And that's how your immune system works. Why would your immune system spend unnecessary energy making millions and millions of antibodies for infections not even there? It doesn't make any sense. That's why in immunology you look at these graphs and so forth. So and also these tests are not that sensitive. And your immune system is so complex. It's not just one antibody that attacks a virus. It's multiple antibodies, different types that target different, we call it epitopes of a virus that linger. The neutralizing antibody, the one that you test for, actually those antibodies drop the furthest, but we don't test for the other ones that actually target COVID-19.
Yeah.
We don't test for those, and we don't test for the cytotoxic T cells, the dendritic cells, the macrophages, natural killer cells that all kill COVID-19 that your body has circulating. And what we're finding out, so even if you have the negative antibody test, don't be discouraged because there's so many other parts that you're still immune. And they re-expose people who had SARS infection, who tested negative for antibodies to prove a point. People who had SARS in 2003 who became immune, they wanted to test the immune system.
Yeah.
They re-exposed them to SARS. 17 years later, their antibody levels shot through the roof, is what your memory cells and so forth do. So you have memory cells that live in the bone marrow, which we can't measure. Plasma cells, which we can't measure.
Yeah.
In the bone marrow. So once SARS was in the body, their memory cells went through the roof and they exhibited no symptoms or mild symptoms.
Okay.
And that's just so, even though the test was negative, once they were exposed to it, so you have a baseline level of antibodies for infections and that we haven't been able to see yet. So it's a lot more complex. It's not that simple. Your immune system is not as simple as a test.
Especially with an antibody test, from what I know, I haven't had one done, but it's just supposed to be a prick of your finger and a dab of your blood, right?
Yeah, and actually I donated blood, which I encourage people to do right now during the crisis because schools are closed and a lot of people donate blood in colleges and so forth. But I donated blood, and 5 months later, my antibody test, because they do that, was still positive. So that just tells me as an immunologist that after 2 months, my antibody levels didn't go down because I'm still exposed to COVID. I'm in the hospital every day, cases are going up, my patients have COVID, and yes, I'm wearing the mask, but I'm not 100% protected. So my antibody level is going to stay high until I'm no longer exposed to COVID. So right now my immune system is protecting me.
Yeah, I was going to say, you being exposed so often, is that showing that your immune system is actually pretty strong and it's helping keep you healthy from getting it?
Yeah, so it's going to stay high. So I'm going to be testing positive for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, until I'm no longer exposed. And it'll drop to a normal level, and then if I ever get exposed again, it's going to shoot back up.
Yeah.
Like the way the immune system is supposed to react. So.
Okay. Next couple of things. The timing of testing, what's going on with
So the timing of test also, because people always tell me like, oh, I tested negative for COVID last week.
Yeah.
Or oh, I tested negative for COVID today. And I said, unless you're testing yourself every day,
You're getting exposed to
there's no way to know for sure
Yeah.
that you don't have the virus actively replicating in your body.
Yeah.
Because you need a certain number of particles to test positive for the.
And after coming into contact with COVID, about on average, how many days does it take for it to be tested positive in your system?
So you can test positive once you start exhibiting symptoms. So people who have symptoms of COVID, they're transmitting the virus for at least 8 days minimum, 8 days after. And actually people who are asymptomatic, they can transmit the virus to people for a lot longer than that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
That's very scary, especially.
Yeah. Talking about the testing is people say like, oh, well, I heard on the news they can get COVID again. I know someone who had COVID mild and then later they caught COVID again and got it really sick, a lot worse, like I'm scared, immunity, all this so forth. We already talked about the immunity and how that's not true yet, but the immune system is very dynamic and complex. So it's not one, you have one antibody, it's not like that, it's more complex. We already covered that, and that's a fact. The thing that we're finding out is there's 2.3% cross-reactivity between these COVID tests and comparing like coronavirus from the general common cold you get every year, coronaviruses, to COVID-19. So the test is positive. 2.3% of those positive cases are actually testing positive for your regular coronavirus. So people say, oh, I had coronavirus, had no symptoms, or I was mild, but then later on I got really sick, was in the hospital. It's because the first time you were probably one of those people that caught the regular seasonal, coronavirus, just like 200 respiratory virus every year. Then later on you caught the real one, and you tested positive again. So that, along with the false positives of the test that we talked about, and also just like any RNA virus, there's a mutation. So this virus is already mutated also. So
you might have had one before that was mutated and now it's changed over to you're getting that one.
Now you're getting that one too. And so some of those reinfections were actually, they sequence the genome and they find out that the person has actually another strain. So there's a reason, you're not reinfected with the same one. But this is also one of the reasons why the vaccine is kind of a gray area for whether to work or not, which we'll discuss later. So the good thing about the COVID, so based on that, is the cases are up around the country. I know everyone's in a panic. 100,000 people, 200,000, so many people are getting COVID. Kids are getting COVID. Oh my God, my little child is getting COVID. But if you look at this picture right here, you'll see that the cases are going up, but the number of deaths is the same. That's because the virus has mutated to become a less virulent, less lethal virus. So it's not killing people like it did before. So it's actually the mutation it has is in the spike protein, which I'm not going to cover that. It's beyond the rim of this podcast. The mutation that's transpired allows the virus to be replicates 10 times faster than the other COVID-19 virus. So it mutates faster. The transmission is just, that's why the cases are going through the roof.
Yeah.
So it's cases are going up, but if you look at this picture, we see that the death rates are not going up.
Okay.
So if you have 5% people dying out of 1,000, then you have 5% of people dying out of 100,000. The proportion is still the same, but the numbers look scary.
Okay. And then what about hospitals being full? I mean, generally this time of year, it's technically considered like flu season right now. So are the hospitals being full? Is that still having to do with COVID, or is it just?
No. Okay. So here's the thing though. So when Governor Newsom said, once our ICU capacity reaches a certain point, we're shutting down. I told everyone around me, well, you might as well shut down now, because every cold and flu season, you have 200 respiratory virus, you have the flu that wreak havoc, and all the hospitals across the country are full.
Yeah.
The ER is full, the ICUs are full, the hospital beds are full, you have people in the hallways, ambulances go on diversion from this hospital because this hospital's too busy and they're overflowed, so the ambulance has to go to a different hospital.
Yeah.
That's every cold and flu season. Doctors were stressed out this time of the year.
It's gonna happen regardless.
Yeah, it's gonna happen regardless.
Yeah.
So then you add the COVID cases on top of that, it makes it look like, oh my God, the hospital's full because of COVID. Well, the hospital's gonna be full anyway.
Yeah.
But people don't see that. Like, you have hospitals are full, that's true. COVID cases are up, that's true. But you can't put the two together.
Yeah, the hospitals aren't full just.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, the news tells you the truth, but they don't tell you the whole picture, and that's elicits fear in people. They're not sure.
Everybody to freak out right now.
Yeah, so it's not that the news is lying to you, they're just not telling the whole story. Because they have limited information, and people who are given information are not qualified to speak on this.
Yeah.
So let's see. So let's segue to vaccines.
Okay. It's a very interesting topic. I'm sure a lot of people want to know about that.
Yeah, and like I said, what I'm about to say is going to be surprising to a lot of people. But the one thing I like in psychology is called the backfire effect. Okay. The backfire effect is when you tell someone the truth, and instead of believing it, they adhere to their false beliefs and so forth. It's like telling people that, telling a kid there's no tooth fairy. And the kid's like, no, you're lying to me, I can't believe you, and so forth. Why would you tell me that? I don't believe you. That's an example of the backfire effect. So what I'm going to tell you about the vaccines is actually, you can look it up yourself, but most people won't. They just won't believe what they want to at this point.
They're not very open-minded about it.
So an mRNA vaccine has been studied, but has never successfully been done before, ever.
Okay.
We've tried to make vaccines against the common cold, but the cold is too many viruses. They replicate too fast, they mutate too fast. So, and also when we had a vaccine for the common cold, it just was a bust. It didn't do what it was supposed to. Then we've tried to make mRNA vaccines for the Zika virus, for rabies, which has shown success in animals. So if your animal has rabies, there's a vaccine to protect your animal, but there's no rabies mRNA vaccine for humans.
Yeah.
We've tried to make a vaccine for cytomegalovirus, also in the flu, with no success. So all of a sudden, we have a vaccine on the way, it's a success and so forth. So I had to look deeper. I had to do my research articles, I had to go to all the molecular biology and the pathways. I had to look at what was coming out. So, because in the lab, we've been curing cancer for years in the lab. We've been curing diseases in the lab for years. And so forth in mouse studies, animal studies.
But this is after years of studies. How is that taking a toll for you being a doctor and stuff? How is that affecting you and other people that you're surrounded by?
It's hard, and I'm overwhelmed right now, to be honest with you. I'm trying to keep my composure in the podcast because I'm signing more death certificates than I've ever done in my life, ever.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking. I'm talking to one patient one day, their oxygen levels drop, and I'm watching them slowly decline. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Because I know what's going on in their body, pathophysiology. I know what's going on with their immune system, how they're fighting. But there's nothing you can do at that point.
Yeah.
And they have so many things going against them. And it's true what I said before in the earlier podcast. Not one person who I've seen die was I shocked.
Yeah.
Not one person. And our cases in this country are going up also because we're unhealthy. Out of all the countries in the world, we
Very unhealthy. Yeah.
very unhealthy. So it's like if half the country is obese,
Yeah.
for some reason COVID loves obesity. And people are very sensitive about their weight.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have patients that don't want to talk about their weight, but the truth is, you may be sensitive about your weight. People around you don't want to talk about it, but COVID doesn't care. It's coming for people who are obese. And like the math says that if your BMI is above 34, if your BMI is above 34, you have a 6 times risk of being in the ICU if you get COVID. 6 times. And if half the country has a BMI higher than that, then there's your cases.
It's gonna be a high death toll.
High death toll, and when you have that, when you carry that much weight, your body starts to break down over time. So then you get your diabetes, your high blood pressure, your kidney failure, those kinds of things, strokes, heart attacks. And all of these things they take an effect on you. Imagine this. So you have to run from this side of the street to that side of the street, and it's raining. So you run straight across the street in a few seconds, you're a little wet, but you dry out quickly.
Yeah.
Now imagine you have to run that same distance and you have a sprained ankle, you're short of breath, you're feeling weak, you're dizzy, but you make it across in a few minutes. You're soaked by the time you get across the street. So I use that analogy because that's your immune system if you have these comorbidities. Your immune system's overwhelmed. You're just, it's not good.
So it really goes to show taking care of your health and your immune system right now is very, very important.
It's a cliche, but you see people going to fast food and so forth with their mask, but with the big belly out here and so forth.
Yeah.
And it's
kind of contradicts one another.
It contradicts, but and whenever I see someone call me in the hospital, because families will call me, Dr. Jones, can you give me an update on my mother? And their mother is 57 years old. She has a BMI of 43, which means she's, big, BMI of 40. She has diabetes, high blood pressure. She doesn't exercise. And she has a tube down because she's already met the qualification. Her BMI being above 34 by 70, she's going to end up in the ICU.
Yeah.
So then with everything else on top of that, that's just it adds on, and all of these things add on. Your immune system is already weakened, and then when COVID hits, your immune system doesn't have what it takes to push you through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's understandable. It's very unfortunate too right now.
Yeah.
And then about people being vaccinated, who is and who isn't getting vaccinated. Like who, right now with us coming out with this vaccine, of course it's very urgent right now. We're trying to get it out as quickly as possible. But right now, who are we prioritizing to give that vaccine to?
The vaccine right now, as being rolled out, is going to healthcare providers. They say because we're on the front line, so they say we need to be protected.
If you guys aren't protected, then
Exactly.
who's going to be there to help us that need it?
Yeah. So we're the ones that then later on is going to go to the elderly, and then the general population in the coming months,
like
in early spring,
people,
in the early spring and summer, yeah.
Okay.
So by the spring, summer, we should have like a full vaccine. So.
Okay. And then infection with the different strain. Infection with the different strain and stuff like that. So, like you were saying, this virus, it can mutate and stuff, and over time we're going to come out with different vaccines. So they're going to keep over, like, obviously over long-term effect, like having a flu shot now. Is COVID going to be something that's going to be a long-term
It's going to be seasonal. It's looking like a season. It may not be every year, but it may be every 2 years. So it looks like a season, but the thing with the mRNA vaccine, once we perfect it, we can quickly produce a vaccine.
Okay. Then complications can be the same as COVID and stuff like that. So
Of course.
You guys could start wrapping it up. Because this battery is about to die.
So like how long?
We're already at 23 minutes.
So okay, we're almost done. So we just could jump back in it.
Well, I don't want it to cut off. I mean, I guess we could charge it and come back and then do an outro.
So it's like 2 more minutes.
Okay.
So the thing though with the cases of it and everything, that by the time the vaccine comes out, the way the rates are going on, if you take the asymptomatic people don't get tested, if you do statistics, is actually 10 times the actual number of cases. So we're at 17 million cases at the beginning of this podcast. So you do the math, 170 million people have already been exposed to COVID and so forth. So at the rate that the virus is going through because it mutated, by the time next spring comes, everyone's going to be infected, and the vaccine is a race to get the vaccine out before we get the herd immunity. So herd immunity, based on how the virus is mutated, is about 50%, which is good, because initially the thought process was based on the R0 value. It's like 75%, but now we're finding more 50%. So that's good news. So we're 20 to 25% of people are already immune to COVID based on the estimates from having had it. And so we're halfway there. And the way this vaccine is going through the population, we're going to be herd immunity pretty quickly. So it's a race to try and get a vaccine before then.
And then,
and I also want to add that the immune system has a high level of redundancy and diversity, of which this vaccine cannot mimic. No vaccine can mimic your immune system. And yet, with everything I just talked about the vaccine, with the pros and cons, and compared to our immune system being exposed to COVID, somehow this vaccine, I've even seen on the news from the top experts, said this vaccine is going to crush the pandemic. If this vaccine is going to crush the pandemic, then why do I still wear face masks?
Yeah.
Why do I still have to not see my grandmother or loved one who I'm worried about?
Yeah, exactly.
So
stuff like that.
It's just trying to, just get a lot of support for the vaccine that we don't know much about.
Yeah.
So a lot of people still, if me, as much as I know on a molecular level, I'm not sure about the vaccine, then how reassured is that to someone watching this podcast or watching the news and so forth to feel confident about the vaccine? So
it's a little bit of an iffy topic. It's a little uneasy for a lot of people. I mean, obviously people are rushing to get the vaccine out of fear because that's what they're being told they should be feeling. But like you're saying, I mean, if you're not even 1,000% on it, how are we supposed to
the literature is just not there, and it's just not my sentiments, the other scientists' sentiments also. Hopefully over time we'll have that information, but right now it's too early.
Yeah.
It's too early.
It's a little too early to tell. For
everything looks good on paper, and I like what we have, but that has not always translated
best in the real world. Yeah. And then about Sweden. So supposedly Sweden's open now. What's going on with that?
So the next topic is Sweden. So Sweden actually was in the news, I don't know if people remember, because they said, no, we're not going to shut down. We're going to focus on herd immunity. We're going to keep everything open. If you wanted to social distance and so forth, that was great. They didn't condemn you, but everything was open. The cases slowly went up, but then they came back down.
Okay.
So herd immunity was working. People were getting better. And Sweden's a lot healthier than we are too. So let's be honest.
Yeah.
Sweden is a lot healthier, because if we did that in the U.S., half the people would have been in the hospital already.
Yeah, definitely.
So Sweden is a lot healthier we are. So basically, the Swedish and the cases started to go up about the same time that the virus mutated. Started to go up. You got to realize herd immunity only works for a particular strain of a virus or pathogen.
Until it starts to mutate.
And then when it mutates, then you have to do herd immunity again. That's why we have flu season every year. So the flu goes through, and then it's over.
Yeah.
And then it comes back, and you have to go through it again every year. It mutates that fast every year. And the thing though is people don't realize is why the hospitals are overwhelmed is because every year you have 1 billion cases of colds and flu. 1 billion through the US by itself. So it means people get the colds and flu 2 or 3 times.
I was looking at those numbers last year.
1 billion, yeah. I got sick a couple times and so forth. And so I try and stay healthy and I'll have a sniffle, cough here and then, but it goes away.
Yeah.
So 1 billion cases going through this country. So if you can't stop the regular cold and flu, you can't stop COVID. And even the experts said at the beginning, they said, do your part, wear your face mask. Trying to stop COVID is like trying to stop the wind.
Yeah.
They said that, and I said at the beginning too. I said that's true. You can't stop COVID, but we can reduce the transmission. We can help the hospitals not be overwhelmed, and we've done that. But with the cold and flu season, the virus has an ammunition needs to rush through everything. You know, the cold weather, people more indoors and so forth, less outdoors. The cases are going to go up. We knew that.
Yeah.
From a standpoint of logistics, that cases going to go up, and we're seeing that now. It's just that it's very overwhelming. This time of year I'm exhausted. I'm past exhausted now.
Yeah.
And I want to take
I
want to take some time off, but the hospital keeps calling. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
You're needed there. Unfortunately, you don't get to take that break for yourself.
Yeah. So basically now Swedish cases going up. There's something called infection-induced herd immunity, which is where you let the infection go through. People get a mild immune response, and then they protect everyone else, like vaccines. So that doesn't work with this viral caseload right now. It won't work in the US. It's too late for that.
Yeah.
If we had done that in the beginning, we would have been able to protect the populations who are at risk. But now it's too late. The at-risk population has nowhere to go. The virus is everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere, unfortunately, and it's just
no longer effective.
The virus is just killing people who are overweight, diabetes, high blood pressure, left and right. And actually, I know a couple of people, and I was proud of them. They actually, since the pandemic started in March, they've lost a lot of weight, and they actually, when they caught COVID, they actually survived.
And versus before, their chances
they would have died. They would have died if they had kept that extra 50, 70 pounds of weight. They actually lost the weight.
Wow.
So
that was them doing their part to keep them
I commend them. So anyone watching this podcast is overweight. I know it's a sensitive topic, but if you do what you can, because if you survive this pandemic, there's other pandemics coming.
Yeah.
So your immune system needs to be in the best shape possible to survive these pandemics. Yeah. So that's what happened with Sweden. The cases went up, the virus mutated. I mean, it came down, the virus mutated, going back up, and so.
So do you think now with all this happening, do you think there's a chance that Sweden might actually want to take that chance and lock down?
They are actually locking down as we're speaking.
Okay.
They are locking down, and because the case is going up, so they feel the pressure.
They tried it the first time, it didn't work out. Now they need to do something.
No, it did work, but the virus mutated and
came back.
Yeah.
So now the second time around, they need to do something.
Yeah.
Okay, and then treatments and prevention. What is it that we're able to do? I mean, I know there's obviously people doing medications and stuff like that. Is there anything at home that you can do yourself? Like any remedies you recommend for people?
So the treatments for COVID, there's no treatment that actually blocks the virus directly.
So now going and talking about treatments, what are hospitals doing to help out with treatments? What are the new treatments that are coming out right now and things like that?
So the new treatments, since the whole pandemic started, have waned, and we thought hydroxychloroquine was a drug, but it's not. And we have remdesivir, which in the clinical trials have been shown to be efficacious in the beginning. So someone who has a shortness of breath, they have a little bit of oxygen requirements, they actually benefit from remdesivir in the beginning.
Okay.
But once you've had the tube down your throat and so forth, it's too late. But remdesivir is not an antivirus specific for COVID-19, but it has been shown to reduce mortality by 3%. Okay. So that's the one thing, and then along with the steroids and so forth that we use to help. These things help, but they don't actually block
Yeah.
the virus.
They don't prevent it or anything, but it does help out.
It helps some. That's why we're looking for the vaccine. This has been going on for so long. We still have a proven treatment that works that's directly targeted to COVID-19. So even though remdesivir is the first FDA-approved drug, doesn't directly block the virus itself.
Okay.
So
what about at-home treatments, like certain vitamins that you're taking, stuff like
so
that?
people always ask about that. So basically, they did studies to say like someone's in the hospital with a vitamin C deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, and they're in ICU with the tube down the throat. What if we give them vitamin D and vitamin C? That should help them. So we've already done those studies over the years. We've added the thiamine, the vitamin B12. And but we found out that giving them these vitamins does not help them at all.
Okay.
So a lot of these things are preventative. People go, oh, I'm feeling sick, I'm sick, vitamin C, vitamin E. Vitamin C and vitamin E are antioxidants. They work before you get sick, like right in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Once you're sick, coughing, sneezing, runny nose, you're in the bed, muscle aches, body aches, it's too late for that.
Yeah.
So which is not surprising because in the hospital, these patients are very sick. Trying to give them these vitamin supplements is too late at that point.
Yeah.
And then people always tout on elderberry. Elderberry is vitamin B vitamins that you can get from a daily multivitamin. You don't have to spend that kind of money on elderberry. And so the thing that I tell people, like, to focus on your immune system. If you want to beat COVID, good night's sleep, healthy weight. You can take a probiotic, because probiotics has been shown to modulate the gut flora.
Probiotic as well, meaning like the yogurts and things.
Yogurts, probiotics. You can take a zinc when you first start to feel sick, because zinc has been shown to block virus from binding to the respiratory cells. So that's been proven also. Zinc,
when you're starting to feel sick and stuff, what about the emergency packets and stuff like that?
Same thing with vitamin C in the very beginning, but once you're already sick, no.
Okay.
You know, they mentally make you feel better, like, oh, I'm doing something.
Yeah.
They don't work. So those are the treatment. And drinking plenty of fluids. Your immune system needs more water when you're sick.
Staying hydrated.
Yeah. So you know, times people come to the hospital with a regular cold and they're dehydrated and their kidney function goes up. So hydration, zinc, probiotics, healthy diet, sleep, good night's sleep, and reduce your stress can help optimize the efficacy of your immune system and help you also. So.
Okay. It's also very interesting. I mean, it is. I mean, good night's rest is the best thing you could possibly get for in general.
No, that's true.
Before any of this, it's a very important thing.
And the segue on the treatments, I know I told about the truth about face masks, which I know people have a hard time believing, but face masks do reduce transmission by 40%.
Okay.
So face masks are not all bad. I just don't want people to focus solely on them, because people wearing face masks and living their lives, going out, eating whatever they want, doing what they want, and they're catching COVID.
Yeah, it's just a part of the preventative that can help, but it's not the biggest.
It's not the end all be all. So instead of focusing on your face mask, focus on your health. Focus on your body, your weight, your exercise, things like that. And if you live in a state where the gym is closed, you can go out for a jog. I do jog, do push-ups, calisthenics, do things like that. Yeah. And it helps me to relieve my stress.
And in LA County too, I mean, hiking trails are still open as well.
Hiking trails out there still open, yeah. And the other thing, like I said, for homes, the air purifier, air ionizer that kills the, we have right here, right now, killing the viruses, the bacteria and so forth in the air and on surfaces and so forth. So that's things I would recommend for at home, because most cases occur at home, so you want to make sure your home is safe.
Yeah.
Wiping down things it only works temporarily. So you want something that's continually, and these air ionizers, you can run them 24 hours like I have over here that's running 24 hours. So
having that as well, I mean, also sanitizing and stuff on top of it.
Sanitizing
That's just a nice little extra step to add into your daily routine in your home.
Yes.
Okay. And then in conclusion of everything that we've talked about so far, I mean, taking care of our body, finding a new hobby or anything like that. What else can we do? Because like you said, gyms being closed, and with a lot of things being locked down right now during COVID, what can people do to keep themselves active besides just going out for a jog and things?
Active, and also the mind plays an important role with your immune system. Stress has been shown to increase inflammation in the body, and inflammation is bad for, too much inflammation is bad for the immune system when you're fighting infections. So the one thing I would say is, there's something I'm gonna look on the screen right here. Johns Hopkins came up with a risk stratification tool to see if you're at risk for dying from COVID. If you look on the screen right here, COVID19risktools.com, you type in your age and answer some questions, and it will tell you your chance of dying from COVID-19 if you get it.
Oh, wow.
And actually, I did it myself because I already had COVID and got over it. and my risk of dying based on my question was 0.03%. Obviously, I didn't die, but my risk of dying was 0.03%. So things like this, you put in your information, can kind of reassure you to let you know, because I have people who are athletes or scared, like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. They're staying at home. They don't know what to do. But this can help alleviate some of those fears. You put the information in that risk stratification and see how at risk you are. If you are at risk, don't dismay. Find some things that you can work on that I've talked about in this podcast to help you to get out of the red zone and more to the green zone where you're not at a high risk of dying. Taking care of yourself and so forth. There's more pandemics are gonna come. If you notice, the flu is every season. H1N1 has been spotted. There was a little boy in Chicago, I believe, who got really sick. They did some genome sequencing and found that it was H1N1 with a hybrid strain of flu that one or two mutations away from causing havoc across the world. So you can't stop these viruses; they're here to stay. You know, we have to coexist. We have to cope with them. So everyone's waiting for normalcy. Like when COVID's over. No, there's gonna be other viruses. Not to scare people, but they're gonna be viruses. They've been here since the beginning of time. And
it's just us being better prepared next time in the future and really having to deal with it.
Yeah. So hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. We've kept it mainly scientific. A lot of research has been done, a lot of hours and hours of speaking to top immunologists, biologists across the country, emails, phones, so forth, to make this podcast. And I welcome any comments or constructive criticism and questions that people may have asked that I did not cover in this podcast. I'm going to make other videos. You can see also, you can hit the subscribe button below and see other videos I made talking about different topics as well. And more videos will come pertaining to more details about different topics like herd immunity, the immune system, stress, how things affect the body, and so forth. And if people always ask me, the final thoughts is, how long is this going to last? And people don't talk about that. How long is it going to last? And truth is, even when the vaccine comes out, we're looking at least minimum through late next year. Another year minimum through late next year, unfortunately.
I mean, now we know in the future, hopefully we can be better prepared for the next pandemic to come, because obviously, like you said, we can't prevent it, what's going to happen. So now this is kind of our stepping stone, our learning point. So now in the future, hopefully we can be better prepared for the next pandemic to come, and we can be able to help ourselves more.
Exactly. So I'm overwhelmed. You guys are overwhelmed. We're in this together. As exhausted as I am, I still gonna keep fighting for you guys and going to the hospital, seeing patients, pushing my body and doing 9-day shifts and trying to rest when I can, because there's a lot of people out there who need help, and I want to do my part. You guys do your part also, but take care of yourself. Everyone says wear a face mask, save a life. That's not true. There's no scientific evidence it's a catchy thing posted all across social media, so it's not true. You don't wear a face mask and save a life. That's not true. You want to save a life, then you take care of your body, and just like me and 5% of the people in this country are immune to COVID, we're actually protecting other people. So once you reach herd immunity, then we're gonna actually be saving a life with our immune systems. So the vaccine or herd immunity, whichever comes first by the time we film the next podcast, it hopefully will put an end to the pandemic and we can go back to normalcy and live the life we had prior to COVID-19. Thank you guys for tuning in, and be safe out there.